What we're watching is the beginning of a war between the United States and Russia. If that sounds jarring, what else would you call it? The Biden administration just inserted itself with force into the middle of a hot war between two foreign powers. That means the United States is now an active participant in a war. We are at war with Russia. Whether or not that war has been officially declared, whether or not Congress has authorized that war, all of that is irrelevant. That war is happening right now as we watch. Almost 5 years ago, way back in 2017, Congressman Eric Swalwell of California came on this show for another Russiagate debate, one of many. He came to let us know how Vladimir Putin had gotten Donald Trump elected president. It was all as stupid as you remember it, until the end of the interview, when Swalwell said something odd and interesting. Swalwell explained that because Putin had installed Donald Trump secretly in the White House, the United States should now, quote, do everything we can to expand NATO's role. In other words, we should let Ukraine join NATO. That's odd. Why would he say that? Why would a policy so seemingly obscure, NATO, Ukraine, what? Why would that be a priority for some forgettable congressman from the East Bay? Well, simple. Because getting Ukraine to join NATO was the key to inciting war with Russia. We didn't get it at the time. Now it's obvious. Vladimir Putin just invaded Ukraine because he didn't want Ukraine to join NATO. Putin certainly had other motives as well. People always do have multiple motives. But that's the main reason Russia invaded. The Russians don't want American missiles on their border. They don't want a hostile government next door. Now, that's true, whether you're allowed to say it in public right now or not. It has been true for a long time. A lot has been written about this over many years by serious people. No one who knows anything and is honest will tell you Putin invaded Ukraine simply because he is evil. Putin may be evil, he certainly seems to be, but he also had strategic motives in doing that. Whether or not you agree with those motives, that's irrelevant. Those are the facts. So with those facts in mind, the Biden administration's behavior in the days before the Ukraine invasion tells you a lot about what motivated them. With Russian troops massed by the thousands on the Ukrainian border, Joe Biden sent Kamala Harris, the least capable diplomat in Washington, to explain America's policy to European heads of state. At a public press event at the Munich Security Conference, Kamala Harris encouraged Ukraine to become a member of NATO. Quote, I appreciate and admire President Zelensky's desire to join NATO. Message? Up yours, Vladimir Putin. Go ahead and invade Ukraine.
Let me start by saying I appreciate and admire President Zelensky's desire to join NATO. And one of, again, the founding principles of NATO is that each country must have the ability, unimpaired, unimpeded, to determine their own future, both in terms of their form of government and, in this case, whether they desire to be a member of NATO. And I'll put that in context because the obvious is also the point, which is that, and therefore no other country can tell anyone whether they should or should not join NATO. That should be their independent choice. That is the point of sovereignty. So I respect President Zelensky's desire to be a member of NATO. It doesn't happen overnight. No one country can say, I want to be, and therefore I will be. And no one country can say, you can't be. And isn't that at the heart of the very issue we're presented with in terms of Russia's aggression or stated aggression toward Ukraine?
Was it surprising to you, though, that he planted that flag so firmly on that issue, given that that's obviously Putin's main demand, is that he gets some sort of guarantee swearing that Ukraine won't be admitted, that Zelensky wants to make it clear that they do want end to the organization. Was that a surprise that he would come and say that at this point in this crisis, and does that make it less likely that there'll be some sort of diplomatic resolution?
I'm not going to second-guess President Zelensky's desires for his own country. I believe he came here. This is my belief, based on just my own assessment and speculation. He came here to make a very clear point, that he does not stand alone. In fact, I told him in our meeting, the United States stands with you. Because we do.
I appreciate and admire President Zelensky's desire to join NATO. Message? Up yours, Vladimir Putin. Go ahead and invade Ukraine. And of course, Vladimir Putin did that just days later. So the invasion was no surprise to the Biden administration. They knew that would happen. That was the point of the exercise. We watched all this happen. We missed it. How? Honestly, because it was insane and therefore very hard to take seriously. Why in the world would the United States intentionally seek war with Russia? How could we possibly benefit from that war? As far back as 2016, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, hysterical little Lindsey Graham, was jumping around, acting out his war fantasies in front of foreign soldiers in Ukraine. Here it is.
Your fight is our fight. All of us will go back to Washington and we will push the case against Russia. Enough of a Russian aggression.
Досить вже російської агресії.
It is time for them to pay a heavier price.
Your fight is our fight? That's a very strange thing for an American lawmaker to say to a foreign military. Why would the Ukrainian government's fight in 2016 possibly be our fight? On what grounds is it our fight? What does that even mean? We don't know. And yet now it is demonstrably true. Ukraine's fight is our fight. Ukraine's war is our war. It's here, but most Americans did not see that coming. Here's the president of the August Council on Foreign Relations on the day of the invasion.
We need now a response of necessity to his war of choice. And there's got to be to raise the economic costs at home, to raise the military costs on the ground. I hate to be so blunt, but the most vulnerable thing that Putin's vulnerable to is dead Russian soldiers. So we have to make sure Ukraine has the means to resist.
Dead Russian soldiers. At the time, that seemed a little bellicose right out of the gate. It had just happened. Maybe there's some way to de-escalate this. The invasion's terrible, but isn't America's role as steward of the West to make things better? Wouldn't a prompt Russian withdrawal from Ukraine be the wisest course for everyone, including and especially the Ukrainians, on whose behalf we claim to speak, but whose country would be leveled by a protracted war? You would think so, but that's not what anyone in Washington wanted. They wanted a war, and now they have one.